Great innovations, subways. Every single day, workers have to arrive to their jobs. They have to face the crowded streets of London, making them take lots of time to get to their destination. A new way of transportation was needed, a more quick, efficient, and safe alternative. Luckily, there were engineers who could develop a system to solve problems of overpopulation and crowdedness in the streets. London 150 years ago. This is when people faced problems of overpopulation and transportation. Back in the day, the city was crowded and trains weren't allowed to enter. This created many conflicts in transportation because London was a major city. The only source of transportation were horses and very undeveloped cars. Charles Pearson had a different idea. His alternative of transportation was to put trains underground. The first underground trains opened in 1863. The man who had the idea was Charles Pearson. The idea occurred to him when he realized that in order to make London a more advanced city, a new way of transportation would be needed. There were many prerequisites for the adoption of the subway system. First, it wasn't easy to make the holes for the trains, and it required lots of money. To do so, they had to destroy main roads to go underground, thus creating traffic. There were also many problems with steam engines underground, so they had to make holes so all the steam could get out. The prerequisites for the adoption of subways in the modern city can be broken down into three categories: needs, resources, and values. City dwellers who began constructing subways and incorporating them into modern cities had to fulfill a functional need in order to adopt this innovation. Subways have become part of modern cities in order to satisfy mainly the need for transporting massive amounts of people within the city. Based on the London Transport Museum, people in the 1800s got mostly around foot. Also, according to a Discovery documentary in the 1850s, London was a major city and it got very crowded. Back then, the steam trains weren't allowed inside the city. How Stuff Works says, they all came into existence for the same basic reason. Large number of people were moving into the city, and the roads couldn't carry them all. Since people, such as workers, wanted and needed a way of getting around, they needed the railway system. Public transportation was only outside the city and the population was growing fast. London's first underground railway, the Metropolitan Railway, was specifically designed to move passengers to the city. This was the central business district. If people didn't have the need to transport to the city, they wouldn't need the underground railway system. It was much easier than walking in public. Later, in the 1945s, during the Second World War, it served as protection against the German bombings. The city dwellers of the modern world could not have adopted subways if a certain key resource had not been available. The most important resource that led to the adoption of subways in modern cities has been the knowledge of architecture, engineering, and building of a stable building. According to Modern Marvel document, the first railways were completed by a method called cut and cover. This was only done by specialists, and it took up to 3 years. Also, James Henry III invented a tunneling shield. It was an iron cylinder shield which allowed safety to the workers. How Stuff Works says, but machines like this don't exist during the construction of the world's first subways. Building crews had to excavate the subway lines in cities like London and Paris by hand. At the start, the excavation was done by hand, relying on the knowledge of the people and the talent of their hands. It was a slow, painful process, but it was done. This changed soon. The new ways of cutting led in the expansion of the London Underground to develop level railway network. The tunneling shield was a single most important innovation for the building of tunnels. After this came the electric tunnels. London was parent to the first underground electric train. Finally, these modern city dwellers believed on a set of values that had allowed them to continue to enjoy the urban lifestyle. The most important value that led to the adoption of subways was efficiency. According to the London Transport Museum, the early underground was a huge engineering achievement and a great success. According to a modern Marvels documentary, the Metropolitan Railway was unique in its direct involvement in suburban property development. By the early 1900s, it had started building housing estates on railway land near its station northwest of London. Since the Metropolitan Railways connected the suburbs to the city, it was a great advancement into suburban expansion and therefore showed efficiency. The London Underground was capable of carrying many passengers to one destination in a very short amount of time. Currently, the metro is a massive transport public system, which is very efficient and safe. Obviously, before the adoption of it, certain needs, usable resources, and specific set of values were to be met.